that you're talking about now, the ones that had expected to either start this year by coming into a clean university, one where they would start their tertiary careers. And while there is a group that is fighting for the rights of some, it's also infringing on the rights of others, as you rightfully mentioned. I mean, this is one of those examples of or rather DUT, not MUT. Now, DUT is also one of the examples of how many students so desperately want to get a tertiary education. You would have seen the debacle at the Durban University of Technology, where there was a hoax message that was distributed, and as a result of that, there were thousands that had come to the university campus to register. It gives you a sense then of how many students so desperately want to get in here. And in some cases, yes, there are other students who are existing students who are limited by the debt that they've incurred. And to put it to put it bluntly, Gareth, it really just is a mess, because ultimately it's going to be impacting what is some of the most crucial years for students, and especially those that, for example, are doing their final year of study and are hoping just to complete it and get into the working world. They're now hindered by this, which one has to also remember, Gareth, comes on the back of another huge disruption that we had last year, which was all of the impact of COVID-19 and the associated lockdown.
As we head up to 10 minutes away from 10 o'clock, I'm Gareth Edwards. This is Newslink. It's good to be with you on this Thursday morning. Yveka Rangapar away as we head up to 10 minutes away from 10 o'clock. Jason Tathia is still on the microphone with me. We've been witnessing his coverage of the running battles between police and what we can only imagine are those students there. I want to be very clear, it is not all students who are protesting. Students, of course, have a right to protest. However, it turned unruly and violent this morning. I'm sure we will be bringing you those visuals later. Running battles between students and police. Rocks being thrown directly at our television crew. A tripod had been stolen. Police having to wear safety helmets and visors as they were being pelted with bottles and rocks. These students were using mattresses as shields. And then, Dyson, some 20 minutes ago, while out on that road, the police seemed to get more backup, essentially more police officers arriving, and then they made the move to push the students back into the campus, and that's where we are now. But where I'm going with this, while watching this all unfold live on TV, still no one from MUT has made contact with you to explain how they're going to handle the situation.
Look, Gareth, fortunately things seem to have gotten a lot calmer now. You'll see while police are standing guard here, the students and that group, that small group that we were talking about, has now opted to sit down. They're now singing. They are still in the area in which you saw them in earlier. And at this point, I imagine that the police will just have to monitor them and make sure that they remain in that space. A colleague of mine has just whispered in my ear now that university management, or at least a representative of the university, should be addressing us shortly. So I am hoping that someone does come out and has a chat with us about the way forward and what their engagements with the SRC have been, if any.
So, taking a look at some of the demands, the requests, whichever way you'd like to frame it, from students. Essentially, it's students versus university management in South Africa. The call for historical debt to be scrapped. There were some concessions made at some universities. Again, here's the problem, that there doesn't seem to be a consensus on how to manage the historical debt. There was a consensus given, a suggestion put forward to scrap 15% of historical debt. That seems to be one of the biggest issues that a protesting group of students like this is seemingly having. The argument from the students is they cannot afford this student debt as they move into the working world. The argument from the universities, and I'm sure there's many of them, will be that a university does need fees. It needs the finances to function as well. But despite all of those discussions between SRCs and management. It seems, Deson Tathia, once again back to you, this hasn't worked, but I want to ask you, as someone who's covered many of these, sometimes you have a situation where the SRC of a university and the management have agreed, but then you'll get a cell, a little breakaway of students, if you will, that do not agree with the representation of the SRC, and it could end up in a situation of a small group like this protesting against that, isn't it?
Exactly, and then to the general public, it looks like this small group of students speaks for the masses, which, as you rightfully put it a little while ago, is not a reflection of every single student that studies at MUT or intends to study here. This is a group that has taken issue with certain university policies, as well as the broader issues that are plaguing students as well as the education sector on a national level, and they have decided to protest in this way to make their points known. One of the other things to mention, apart from the historical debt here, is that they were also earlier in the week calling for free registrations, because you know that there is a cost that is associated with registering at a university, and one of the things that they wanted was to have students register for free. I haven't seen a formal memorandum just yet, and I hope if things calm down later today, we can actually engage the students directly about that and see if they have submitted anything, just to get a full list of these demands that they are putting forward, and to also understand exactly who they are representing. I said earlier that we must make sure that it is, in fact, the SRC, or rather, if it is the SRC that is speaking on behalf of students, or is this a group that has taken it upon themselves to ensure that they put their demands forward independently.
All right, the song that you can hear being sung in the background will let our camera person pick up some of that audio for you. My crack producer telling me it's a protest song, which, if I heard you correctly, is What Have We Done? I think that was essentially the protest song that they're singing at the moment.
That's right, Gareth.
And Deson, what was the name again? Sensenina.
Sensenina.
All right. So I couldn't help but notice as well, and I do think this is something we can speak to. We are at the Mangosuthu University of Technology. There's the logo, MUT. I am seeing a couple of students, as Neil zooms in there, wearing shirts of the IFP, and I could very clearly see the image of Mangosuthu Buthelezi on that as well. And this, I imagine, is not what anybody involved with the university, these are not the kind of scenes that they would have wanted to see. What kind of political engagement have we seen at protests over the years? Does there seem to be a political will to try and fix this problem?
If we have seen it, it's generally come in quite late, and it comes in beyond these protests that you see, or rather these riots, which they later become, that you see. And you sometimes see leaders coming in. Like, for example, today at DUT, there is an engagement there with the Democratic Alliance's student body. They are going through to the university, but one wonders what purpose that will serve there, considering that predominantly, it wasn't their members that were predominantly partaking or at least openly partaking in those protests. They haven't submitted any memorandums on their side as well. Here you mentioned the different T-shirts that we saw. Interestingly enough, the IFP T-shirt that you saw a student wearing, that is also one that the student who was arrested earlier was also wearing as he was taken out by police. But it's important to mention, Gareth, that the T-shirts are not an indication of the political affiliation, because it's very easy for anyone to grab a T-shirt and put it on, especially during a spectacle like this one, just to perhaps paint a certain party in a bad light. There are lots of variables. There are things that are difficult to verify at a time when there's a battle between police and students, and these are things that normally emerge much later. So as much as we cover these protests and we see these things quite visibly, we also need to interrogate what we see just to ensure that the wrong message is not put out.
I think let's interrogate that a little bit further as well, Dason, while you stay with me and we try and establish what is happening on the ground and who to speak to. Let's take you back some 21 hours. The National Health and Allied Workers Union, you'll know them as NEHAWU, National Education, Health and Workers Union. They have rejected claims that it's contravened picketing rules during a strike by its members at the Mangosuthu University of Technology on Tuesday as well. I don't think we're leaving Dason just yet. We're watching that very closely. I'm keeping my eye on that screen. So it does seem, Dason Tathia, I think we can come back to you for the moment, that beside the student protests for no fees and no historical debt, there does seem to be a union issue at play here. It all had to do with an issue relating to annual salary increases for staff. So NEHAWU has also been in the media as a result of protests at the university as well.
And all of these things contributing to yet another delay in the start of this academic year. And certainly some of the staff have also had their own grievances. The one that we've been, I think, watching over the last few minutes is the one that has just taken center stage because of the interaction that you're seeing here between students and police, the engagement, the violence. But it's not to forget that there are those staffing issues as well that are plaguing this university. There are many things that need to be sorted out, that things that need to be clarified by university management. I am hoping that information that was given to me a short while ago about the university engaging with us will actually come to fruition, just so we can put some of those questions to them, Gareth.
And when you put those questions to them, Dason, I'm sure you'll ask about MUT management. I'm reading an article from a day or so ago saying that they had arranged a meeting with recognized labour unions and the executive members of those student representative councils, the SRC. So you're quite
Gareth,
right.
Gareth, it seems like my wish has been granted. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hi, good morning.
Okay, I think there are many questions that I need to get through, but I'm also keeping an eye on what's going on at the back here. I think at the outset, has there been an engagement between the university as well as the students prior to what we saw this morning?
Yes, yesterday management had a meeting with the students and we discussed extensively their demands and we committed to deal with those. What is happening now is outside the discussions that we had with the students, because earlier this morning I approached the very same group of students and I discovered that the SRC was not part of this, because we had engaged with the SRC yesterday. And this is a group that is on the side, which I don't know yet what it is that they are protesting about.
So, if I understand you correctly, DVC, this is the almost a rogue group, because you're saying that this group didn't form part of that engagement that you've had?
Yes, no, it didn't form part of the engagement. The first question I asked when I approached them this morning was, where is the SRC? And I gave a call to the SG of the SRC, who assured me that they are not part of this and that they are still waiting for management to respond to the issues that we discussed with them yesterday.
So for clarity, the issues that you did discuss with the official structure of the SRC, and I'm just going to ask you to turn slightly so we can keep an eye on what's going on to the left of us as well. Okay. So if I could just ask you to stand here, yes.
Okay.
Let's just clarify the official issues of the SRC as they have put forward to the university. Can you confirm those for us over and above the issue around historical debt?
Well, students have several issues.
The police are just asking us to move to the left, so if you could just join me.
Students raised legitimate issues with management about their registration, about them accessing results, even though some of them are still owing. They raised issues about laptops and data, and wanted management's commitment that once the academic program starts, they will be able to access those. And at most, in the meeting that I stayed in, we have made some commitments to the students and assured them that the issues that they are raising will be addressed.
So it was enough then, in your opinion, to get the academic year rolling smoothly?
Yes, look, some of the issues are easy to address. Some of them can be addressed immediately, but issues which relate to finance, where you have to keep making concessions to students and sinking the university deeper into debt, are not issues that are easy to agree to without making decisions that have a negative impact upon the sustainability of the institution going forward. So yes, we are willing to engage with the students, but certainly that will be within the limits and the bounds of what the university can be able to achieve at this stage.
So let's deal with the matter at hand here, because you still have a huge problem on your hands, and that's what we are looking at behind you now. You saw what took place here on your university property earlier. While it is easy to engage with a formal body like the SRC, how do you propose to diffuse the situation that is brewing now? Because if this group and the SRC are speaking in two different voices, what's your next move?
Look, obviously our first prize is to engage with the students and hear what it is that they are protesting about. As it is now, they have not sent any representation to management about the issues they are complaining about. And we are awaiting that, because they can't keep doing this forever without really saying what it is that is keeping them on their toes as it is right now. They will have to engage with management about what it is that they are complaining about. And well, my official position in the morning was that I'm willing to engage with the SRC because they are the official representation of students at the university. They are the structure that is mandated to raise issues with management and have discussions around those issues.
And while that's all fine and well, and that's how it should be, but unfortunately that's not how it is right now. It still leaves you with this concerning issue right now.
Yes, Dustin. I will actually, during the course of the day, I'm here on campus and my office is open, and we will try to engage with the students, obviously, to hear what it is. I am sure they are also not just interested in doing this for the rest of the day, but they are interested in getting their issues heard and dealt with. So we will endeavor to engage with them.
Have you invited them to a meeting? It's this group that I'm speaking about.
Yes, when we approached them this morning, they said they're waiting for their chairperson. Yes.
We were talking, myself and my colleague Gareth in the studio, about the fact that this is an issue that is ongoing, and it's an issue that we see every single year. In a situation like this, even having these negotiations, it becomes almost like a band-aid. So I see you reaching into your pocket. If you want to put your mask on, please feel free.
Okay.
As I was saying, so it's a problem that we see every single year. So even these negotiations that you have with the SRC, do you agree that it's sometimes a little bit like a band-aid that you're placing onto the wound because it'll open up again in the following year?
Yeah, look, Dustin, I mean, in most circumstances, the central issues that students raise have to do with finance. And you know that it's not a situation that is obtaining at this institution only. Students continue to try to seek concessions in terms of what is due to them. I mean, that what is due by them. So every year we try to address them, but obviously every year these issues keep cropping up, and students seek further concessions. But unfortunately, you cannot continue to make concessions without compromising the financial position of an institution. That is the unfortunate part of it.
And speaking of financial implications for the institution, in the past, you've also suffered damage to your infrastructure. Just remind us of what these types of student protests have cost your university in the past because of this unhappiness from some quarters over what they're calling financial exclusion.
Well, we do our best to avoid that. We haven't had that in the recent past where students damage infrastructure. That hasn't happened. But obviously, it's also a first prize for us to try to avoid an escalation of the situation to a point where it will impact negatively on them resorting to the destruction of property.
I think as we wrap up our conversation, because I see that the group is moving closer to this area, maybe speak to me in practical terms. What is your next step as a university going forward? I imagine that you will be closed now because you can't have staff or students on this university while this is going on. But in practical terms, what is the next step for you as a university?
The official position of the university is that the university is open for business, for the operations of the university. But obviously, we would like to keep our staff and students and all workers at the institution would like to keep them safe at all times. And it's also amazing that even part of the group that is here, some of the students are not yet registered. So, but we will not get into that. We will practically try to engage the students because that is the only way we can try to resolve the situation. I don't think they are interested in doing this forever and permanently, and as management we are committed to engaging the students to try to seek a solution that will lead the institution to resuming its operations again. So engagement is our first prize, Dustin.
And speaking of engagement, on a different note, is your academic staff ready to resume? Have they ironed out all of their issues that they've had?
We've met yesterday with unions that represent academic staff at the institution, and we've had extensive discussions about the demands that they've tabled that they would like management to work on. So we've made a commitment. Executive management met yesterday afternoon and we had discussions about this. We're also meeting this afternoon to try to resolve some of this, and we'll be giving a response to the unions as soon as we are able to put together our response to the demands that they've made.
So you've got your hands full then on both sides, with the students as well as the staff.
Dustin, we've got our hands full on both sides, but we'll resolve it. We'll get there eventually. It's nothing impossible, I believe.
Okay, we'll certainly be watching this closely, and just a reminder of viewers, you are the Deputy Vice Chancellor, yes?
Yes, I'm the acting Deputy Vice Chancellor, teaching and learning, and at present the Vice Chancellor, who is also acting, he's off to attend a family commitment, and I'm acting as the Vice Chancellor presently. Well,
you've certainly got your hands full, as I said. Thank you so much for your time, sir. I appreciate it. We will be watching this. Gareth, that was quite an informative conversation that we had there with the Deputy Vice Chancellor, just addressing some of those issues, as we had suspected in our conversations you and I were having, is that this, he says, is not a representation of the official position of the SRC. He says that the SRC and the university had engaged and they were able to reach some kind of agreement. But this group is a rogue element. You'll see that they are asking us to leave. So now they're picking up stones. We're just walking away to where the police are. But to continue that conversation, Gareth, he did say something very important. He said that he hopes that the university management will have a discussion with this group during the course of the day to see to find a way forward. Because interestingly, he says that there hasn't been a formal list of demands that has come from them. So it's unclear from his position as to what they want and whether it's different to what the SRC has been asking for. So we'll be looking out for that meeting if and when it does happen. He has put out an open invitation to the students to engage with him, or at least representatives of this group to engage. But another interesting point is that it seems from where we're standing is that this group has also increased in numbers slightly from the last time that we saw them.
And what's going to be at play here as well, no doubts, we've seen the students with EFF shirts on, a couple of regular red shirts. There's an EFF flag with Julius Malema on as well. And to the left-hand side of that, I'm sure we'll see it now, that being an IFP flag with Mangosuthu Buthelezi, Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi as well. And this is what the protest is essentially going to be calling for as well, is I'm sure these students there are going to want some kind of intervention. They're going to want these politicians that they are clearly supporting in this protest to come forward and speak for them as well. But the problem being is right now we don't have an idea who is actually in charge, and seemingly neither does the university.
That's just it, and it's a problem, because you would have heard me also asking the Deputy Vice Chancellor, how do you engage with a body that is almost working independently of this formal structure? Because you could find that even within this group there are students that may want different things. The fact that they haven't yet issued their own memorandum, I think, speaks to that. So this will be one of the situations the university is going to have to tread very carefully. You pointed out something just now about how you see all of these different political party T-shirts as well as the flags, and that's another interesting element. There seems to be almost an element of unity within disunity here, if you will, because this is supposedly, by the university's position, a breakaway of the SRC, but within them they also have a number of different political parties that they claim to be representing.
And it's very important for us to state as well, claiming to be representing those parties. Just because they're wearing shirts and they do have those flags does not mean that they are card-carrying members of those parties. And I'm sure we'll get reaction from those political parties throughout the day. Des, let's take